When you think of the most haunted places in America, what comes to mind? Maybe you're thinking of a house like the Whaley House or Waverly Hills Sanatorium, places where some tragic events happened that resulted in lingering spirits that just couldn't move on. But what about prisons? Prisons are among the most depressing places to be alive, so it only makes sense that they'd be prime real estate for ghosts. Today, we'll be taking a look at a few prisoners who never left Eastern State Penitentiary, a real haunted prison in Philadelphia. This is our channel, and today we're answering the question, what happens when prisoners don't leave? Join me as we explore the darkest corners of the human psyche and learn about some of the most evil people that have ever lived. Eastern State Penitentiary opened its doors in 1829 and was one of the first purpose-built prisons in the United States. It was also one of the first to use the radial design, which featured cells radiating from a central hub. This design allowed for easy access to all cells from the center, minimizing the need for guards. Unfortunately for those incarcerated, this made it easier for guards to keep watch over their prisoners. The philosophy behind the prison was one of solitary confinement. Cells were soundproofed with thick walls and barred windows to ensure prisoners would not be disturbed. Prisoners were expected to work during the day and spend their free time in their cells. This regime proved to be successful in reducing violence among prisoners, but the mental well-being of inmates took a nosedive. Prisoners slowly lost their minds due to sensory deprivation. Today, we know this practice as a form of torture. After years of declining mental health among prisoners, the prison implemented more humane practices into their daily routine, including group activities and social interaction. Unfortunately for the prison, and this would lead to an increase in violence among the prisoners. After several riots, the prison would close its doors in 1913, leaving behind a legacy of sadness, pain, and most of all, death. Some say that death is the only thing that can set a person free. If that's true, then these men never truly left prison. Before we get into the list, make sure to hit that like button if you haven't already. With that being said, let's jump into the list of prisoners who never left Eastern State Penitentiary. Number 6. George Washington Gale. George Washington Gale was sentenced to life in prison after killing 2 men in 1923. In the early 1900s, Gale was a very successful businessman. He owned the American Straw Paper Company, which had contracts with both the Navy and the Red Cross. But his business was built on a foundation of sand, literally. Gale had been defrauding customers by selling paper made from sawdust instead of linen. When his operation was threatened by new federal regulations, he concocted a plan to sell fake radium water to unsuspecting victims. Not satisfied with the money he was making through fraud, Gale decided to take things to the next level. On April 7, 1923, he murdered pharmacist George Reiter, who was trying to buy stock in the fraudulent company. Just 3 months later, he would murder again, this time killing Dr. John R. Brinkley after an argument over the radio broadcast rights for a fake interview with the Pope. Gale attempted to flee the country, but was caught by authorities and sent to Eastern State Penitentiary. While incarcerated, he became increasingly violent, eventually stabbing another inmate, Joseph Harmon, to death. He was transferred to the infamous D Block, also known as Death Block. He spent the rest of his life there until his death from a heart attack in 1957. Many believe that Gale's spirit is still trapped in the prison, seeking revenge on anyone who enters his cell. Cell 24 is now boarded up to keep visitors out, but many believe that's not enough to keep them safe. Number 5. Paul Eberhardt. Paul Eberhardt may not have been a killer, but his crimes were no less heinous. Eberhardt was a repeat offender, serving multiple sentences in multiple states. At age 17, he was convicted for burglary and served 2 years in state prison. 3 years later, he was arrested again for burglary and assault. He was sent back to jail, but would only serve 6 months before being released. Eberhard would go on to rob several banks and was suspected in a string of other robberies as well. After his arrest, he was sent to Eastern State Penitentiary, where he would remain until 1938. It was here that Eberhardt developed a reputation for being incredibly violent. He beat up fellow prisoners and guards and even urinated on the floor of his cell. One night, Eberhardt managed to escape his cell. Prison officials knew he wouldn't get far, so they didn't raise the alarm. They quietly apprehended him and sent him back to his cell. But the next morning, his cell was empty. A search of the prison revealed that Eberhardt had somehow made his way to the roof and jumped. He sustained fatal injuries and his body was found lying outside the prison wall. To this day, no one knows how he escaped the prison or how he managed to jump such a high wall. But some say his ghost still haunts the prison, searching for an escape that he never got. 4. The Twins. In 1948, identical twins John and Edward Smith robbed a grocery store. As they were fleeing the scene, police officers spotted the getaway car and pursued the brothers. A chase ensued, but the cops finally cornered the vehicle and arrested the boys. At trial, the brothers claimed they were innocent, but the jury saw through their lies and found them guilty. The judge overseeing the case ordered that each boy serve 5 to 10 years in prison. But the judge never imagined that housing these twins would cause so much turmoil. From the moment they stepped foot in Eastern State Penitentiary, the boys began terrorizing the staff. They fought with other prisoners, stole food, and refused to follow any rules. Guards would often find the boys standing in the middle of the hallway, laughing hysterically. It was clear that they needed to be separated. However, every time a guard tried to separate the twins, one of them would begin crying, saying that they would kill themselves if they were separated. Despite this, the prison staff carried out the separation, locking each of them in solitary confinement. Days turned into weeks, and eventually the crying stopped. However, a guard would soon discover why. Several weeks later, the bodies of the twins were discovered hanging in their cells, having taken their own lives. Many believe that the ghosts of these boys still roam the halls of Eastern State Penitentiary, searching for the freedom that they never got. Number 3. Monte Rustino. Monte Rustino was born in 1927 in New York City. As a child, he suffered from severe behavioral problems. He had violent mood swings and would lash out at anyone who upset him. His behavior would only become worse as he grew older. In 1957, he killed his wife and was sent to prison. While incarcerated, his behavior did not improve. He would regularly threaten prison personnel and other inmates. After serving several years of his sentence, he was transferred to Eastern State Penitentiary. He would only stay here for a few months before his behavior escalated once again. Risen angrily confronted a guard and was promptly beaten. The next day, he was found hanging in his cell. Number 2. The Cell Block 12 Ghost. There's nothing more terrifying than when a place itself becomes cursed. This is believed to have happened in Eastern State Penitentiary's Cell Block 12. Throughout the years, several inmates died in this building, leading many to believe that the building itself is cursed. But it wasn't until 1986 that the ghost of Cell Block 12 came to prominence. 2 children were visiting the prison with their father. Their father, an avid fan of paranormal investigation, brought his kids along for a ghost tour. The family walked down the hallway of Cell Block 12 when suddenly the little girl tugged on her father's shirt. She pointed to the end of the hallway and screamed, "Oh my God, there's a dead man over there." Her father dismissed her comment, assuming that she was referring to one of the mannequins placed around the prison to simulate prisoners. But as he turned to tell her off, he saw the same vision that she described. Standing in front of him was the ghost of an emaciated man wearing prison clothes. He looked like he hadn't bathed in months. The ghost seemed to linger around the cell block for a moment before disappearing. The father immediately called prison security to share his experience, but the guards claimed to have no knowledge of such a ghost. Many believe that the ghost of Cell Block 12 appears to warn visitors of the terrible things that occurred within its walls. Number 1. Demetrius P. Green. Very little is known about Demetrius P. Green, but his story is important nonetheless. Green was sent to Eastern State Penitentiary in 1906 after being convicted for raping a woman. He was given a sentence of 4 to 10 years. At first, Green behaved well in prison, but he would later become disruptive. He was often found screaming obscenities late at night, which disrupted the other prisoners. He would also refuse to work and would often sit in the corner of his cell staring blankly ahead. It was clear that Green was mentally unstable. He was transferred to the prison's death block, commonly known as the dungeons. But Green's stay in the dungeons was short-lived. Just a year after his transfer, Green was found dead in his cell. But the circumstances surrounding his death are strange to say the least. The official report claims that he died from a cerebral hemorrhage, but others claim that he was actually hanged in his cell. Green's body was sent to the morgue where it was embalmed, but some say that the embalmers discovered bruising on his neck consistent with strangulation. To this day, no one knows how Green died, but some believe that his ghost is still searching for answers. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out some of our other content.